whole topic. Then you get into, this is a great one, you get into the earthquake machine. This is a really cool one. The creator of the earthquake machine who went to Japan and he studied earthquakes because they said that earthquakes most commonly happen in Japan. They actually have the most earthquakes in the world in Japan. And he was studying Japan, and this is where it gets fascinating. He was saying that when an earthquake happens, what happens is there's a shift or a wave in the earth. And then usually 2 days later, people begin to feel it. So think of instead of thinking about earthquakes as what we've been shown, where the earth actually cracks apart, think of them as waves going through the earth. And this guy, it was Professor John Mills, I probably butchered it, Milnes. He created a machine so that he could show that earthquakes are actually traveling through the earth. They're not going around. You know, the whole round thing we've been taught? They're not going around. They're going through the earth. They would start at one point and travel through the earth and arrive in another area. And it would wave through the earth to the other side. And people usually feel it 2 days later, which is interesting. You're always like, oh, that earthquake, you feel it? You're feeling something that has happened 48 hours before. And it's interesting because he talks about an earthquake that is absolutely massive in Japan. One of the biggest ever to hit Japan. And it pretty much just decimated everything. Let me see if I got a picture in here. But he was actually the one who created the device in which you would see the earthquakes. So he determined that these earthquakes are going through the earth, acting like waves, like the ocean. And it's interesting because a lot of people sent me videos about earthquakes in the ocean making waves. And people were like, I don't know what's going on. It's got to be a harp or something. It's actually what the earth is doing. That's what I realized. The earth is making waves through the earth. And that's what's actually causing all that. And then so when you have tides, you actually have the earth. The vibration of the earth is the tides. And then you get tsunamis, which, is just a massive, massive eruption of energy or a wavelength or frequency through the earth. Just crazy. Last year I experienced a quake in Mexico City. It was definitely a wave. That's why tsunamis happen, waves going through. Yeah, it's a wave effect. Everything's a wave. You know, everything moves with waves. Don't tell anybody that, because then that defeats the whole nonsense we've been told. And then here you can see he showed how there's long waves and then there's short waves. And so when an earthquake happens and it's real long, it would be long waves. And then when an earthquake happens, there's short waves. He also showed that most earthquakes are deep in the ocean, you know, where it's like 4,000 feet. There's earthquakes happening all the time. And it's funny because they don't tell you that. This was also something else. Pieces of submarine cable picked up in the Gulf of Mexico in 1888. 1888, submarine cable. Did the submarine come around much faster or much earlier than we know? Because 1888 is pretty early. So that's an interesting one. And then you sit there and think about cables in the ocean. Well, the internet runs through cables in the ocean. We know this. We've studied this. The internet runs through cables in the ocean. It doesn't go up to satellites and all the sataballoons nonsense they tell us. It runs through the ocean. So if we think about that there's cables through the ocean in 1888, was the internet already here in 1888? And then it was sold to you in maybe about the 1970s and 80s. You can connect to your computer to the technology which was already present, because a lot of the stuff that was already present seems to be found and then sold to us later on. So this technology I'm sitting on right now, 1888. Interesting thing to think about. Then you get into earthquakes, how earthquakes happen, and how they look, which is interesting. Waves, once again, that whole thing. Lots of waves. And then different storms and things like that. And then we get into this one. This is a great one too as well. Someone said you're losing your credibility. Okay, assuming we're losing my credibility. Gotcha. So with that, now we move into electrical furnaces. And I think this is a great one too. Electrical furnaces. And John Levy has talked a lot about these. Electrical furnaces. And he actually explored in Utah these, they look like little coke caverns or little like domes. And he found all these in Utah. And actually I started to realize that this book kind of starts to uncover what those little caverns or little coke domes were actually used for. They could transmute materials using an electrical furnace through those little domes and make materials in which we don't even know exist in this realm. That's really crazy.
And here is a furnace room, and you guys can kind of see that. And this is a very special material. I'm going to spell it out because I can't really say it, but it's
CARBORUNDUM. And this material is so strong that it could cut through a diamond, it could cut through anything. And what they would do is they would heat up these furnaces to 7,000 degrees. 7,000 degrees. Coal only hits 3,000. So these electrical furnaces that John Levy was finding, that's why I want everybody to go look at his videos, he was finding these little domes out in Utah. If they were electrical furnaces connected to water, you could heat them up to 7,000 degrees and you could transmute materials. This fellow was actually the fellow who was trying to create diamonds. And instead of creating diamonds, he made stuff that was even stronger than diamonds. So when we think about all this stuff that's out there, just kind of out in the middle of the nature, it starts to connect back to these electrical furnaces that seem to be in this book. And it talked about how the strongest, was a great one, the strongest electrical furnace utilized an incandescent bulb or an incandescent technology and dynamos. And all these dynamos, crazy amounts of dynamos, Niagara Falls and dynamos. And you start to sit there and think, okay, who created that? Where did that come from? And then you start to sit there and think about all the electricity which was already here. The Niagara Falls was pumping out electricity like crazy. And all these dynamos, same exact thing. So then you start to think about that, but the whole electrical furnaces, you're going into incandescence. And here you go. This was really cool too. They could actually create mini volcanoes. They understood that if they cooked materials to over 7,000 degrees, they could simulate a volcano and have lava come off of it. And what's interesting is they said that there was over 52,000 pounds of carbon monoxide coming off of this heater. And then we start to sit there and think, those carbon monoxide testers that they try to sell you? Well, if there's 52,000 pounds of carbon monoxide coming off of these, wouldn't that be toxic? Are they selling it to you for a different reason? Kind of like when you go to look at a property and they ask you, is there any radium or radon gas on the property? Does that connect maybe back to these? Questions we got to ask with this whole situation. Now here we take it another step because, we got to just keep on the ball rolling. It's like that year of uncovering everything. Isn't that what they were saying? Years of uncovering. Someone says, how is this helping us create a better future? Well, if you don't know the past, you get taken advantage of. That's pretty much what it is. And if you don't know the technology that existed in the past, then you keep paying for things which are free. That's actually how this works. If you don't understand that, for example, let's go with this one. This is a solar furnace or solar panel in 1902 in Los Angeles. So if you don't know that that technology comes from 1902 and they were using it to create energy in 1902, you're going to get sold the solar panel in 2024, which is going to fall apart and pollute your land. Well, meanwhile, in 1902, they already had the technology and it was already very efficient. But now they're going to sell you this not so efficient solar panel. And you kind of keep going through the rat race of not understanding why you keep paying so much money for electricity and all these things which were already here, and you get robbed. That's kind of what it is. Actually, that's what it is. Just like the secrets of the Federal Reserve. You get robbed. So same exact thing. And that was the beautiful Los Angeles front view of the Los Angeles solar motor right there. Solar motor. Absolutely astounding. And then we get into more of it. You got some more. This guy, another guy, he's on the reflector. And it was using all mirrors. So same exact thing. All mirrors. Absolutely beautiful. And then let me see, I got one more in here.